"Oh, I wouldn't go out to-night," she said deprecatingly. "'Tisn't fit for anyone to be out in the bitter cold." "And yet," he looked at her attentively, "there will probably be many people out in the streets to-night." "A many more than usual, I fear, sir." "Indeed!" said Mr. Sleuth quickly. "Is it not a strange thing, Mrs. Bunting, that people who have all day in which to amuse themselves should carry their revels far into the night?" "Oh, I wasn't thinking of revellers, sir. I was thinking—" She hesitated; then, with a gasping effort, Mrs. Bunting brought out the words, "of the police." "The police?" He put up his right hand and stroked his chin 2 or 3 times with a nervous gesture. "But what is man, what is man's puny power or strength against that of God, or even of those over whose feet God has set a guard?" Mr. Sleuth looked at his landlady with a kind of triumph lighting up his face, and Mrs. Bunting felt a shuddering sense of relief. Then she had not offended her lodger? She had not made him angry by that? Was it a hint she had meant to convey to him? "Very true, sir," she said respectfully. "But Providence means us to take care of ourselves too." And then she closed the door behind her and went downstairs. But Mr. Sleuth's landlady did not go on, down to the kitchen. She came into her sitting room, and, careless of what Bunting would think the next morning, put the tray with the remains of the lodger's meal on her table. Having done that, and having turned out the gas in the passage and the sitting room, she went into her bedroom and closed the door. The fire was burning brightly and clearly. She told herself that she did not need any other light to undress by. What was it made the flames of the fire shoot up, shoot down in that queer way? But watching it for a while, she did at last doze off a bit. And then Mrs. Bunting awoke with a sudden thumping of her heart. Woke to see that the fire was almost out, woke to hear 1/4 to 12 chime out, woke at last to the sound she had been listening for before she fell asleep, the sound of Mr. Sleuth, wearing his rubber-soled shoes, creeping downstairs, along the passage, and so out, very, very quietly by the front door. But once she was in bed Mrs. Bunting turned restless. She tossed this way and that, full of discomfort and unease. Perhaps it was the unaccustomed firelight dancing on the walls, making queer shadows all round her, which kept her so wide awake. She lay thinking and listening, listening and thinking. It even occurred to her to do the one thing that might have quieted her excited brain. To get a book, one of those detective stories of which Bunting had a slender store in the next room, and then, lighting the gas, to sit up and read. No, Mrs. Bunting had always been told it was very wrong to read in bed, and she was not in a mood just now to begin doing anything that she had been told was wrong. Chapter 20. Recording by Leanne Howlett.